Okay, what we have before us is a spreadsheet with demand data. We see price and we see quantity. And as we learned with supply and demand, as the price goes up, the quantity goes down. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, since these are prices, I'm going to click on the currency icon so that now they're listed as prices. Now, what we want to do is come up with the demand function of this data. So what we can do to do that is use these Google Sheet commands. So we're going to need the slope and the y-intercept for our linear function. So if we want to do slope, we enter the command equals slope, and you see when you enter in slope, it says slope of line from linear regression data. So the way you enter the data is A2 to A9 and B2 to B9. The price is our X variable, the horizontal axis. We're actually going to use P and not X. And the quantity is our Y variable, which is the vertical axis. Another name for these are the independent variable and the dependent variable. For these commands, you have to do the dependent variable first. So it's going to be B2 to B9, comma, A2 to A9. And our slope is negative 1,756. To get the intercept, equal intercept, and you can see down here y-intercept of line derived via linear regression, and we enter the data the same way, the dependent variable first, B2 to B9, comma, A2 to A9. And there is our y-intercept. So our equation would be, let me type this in, insert drawing text the demand function is quantity equals negative 1756.19, let's round off to 2 decimal places, P plus 30,238.82. Now, what do these numbers mean? Okay. The slope means every time the price goes up $1, you would expect to sell 1,756 less of whatever widget we're selling. The demand is what consumers want to buy. Now this number, the y-intercept, if you recall, that's where the graph would cross the y-axis. At the y-axis, the price is 0. So what this is saying, if the price were 0, you would expect the demand to be this much, which doesn't exactly make sense, because if something was free, what would the demand be? So our linear regression, our demand function, is really a model, which doesn't always work out perfectly in the real world. Now, another thing we can do is we want to know, for example, what would the demand be if the price was another number. Now, you can always plug it into our equation, but Google Sheets has another function called forecast, And you can see forecast here comes up, the expected Y value based of linear regression. So forecast, and then let's pick a price that we're curious about. Let's say, what would the demand be if we lowered the price to $14? And then you enter the data again, B2 to B9, comma, A2 to A9. And you can see if the price was lowered to that price, we would expect the demand to be 5,652 widgets. Now, one more thing to remind you of how to find the correlation between this data is we use the correlation command correl, and you see it gives the correlation coefficient. And let's do the data dependent variable first, B2 to B9, comma, A2 to A9. And you see it's negative 0.999. So that's almost a perfect correlation. -1 would be perfect, and this is very close. So that's the correlation coefficient. I think I'll stop there. And of course, as you know, if you have questions, go ahead and ask.